Thank you for clicking on the video. My name is Brian, and today we're going to talk through all of the equipment I use to produce my podcast. So the first thing we should talk about whenever it comes to any podcast is the audio. So for the audio, I'm using a Shure SM7B, which is like the standard of podcast microphones. And also I have a Rode PodMic. And I plan on getting more of those pod mics. They're really, really cheap for the quality. Super good quality. And I think they're only like 99 bucks. Really good steal of a microphone. The Shure SM7B microphone is running into a Cloudlifter, which is then running into a Zoom H6. The PodMic is running just directly into the Zoom H6. Here are some examples of what those sound like.
Very first ever podcast.
It's a new way to collaborate.
Podcast to be able to talk to other business owners. The death of dreams are in the comfortable areas.
If you have a good season, you've got to be ready for the bad season, right?
Now for headphones to be able to monitor ourselves while we're talking in the podcast, I have these Audio-Technica ATH M20X. Those were the cheapest, best quality sounding headphones that I could find. Both of those headphones are running into a splitter jack. That way I can monitor both sets of headphones from one output on the Zoom H6. After that, I have two Sony a7 IV cameras. So one will be pointed to the guest, one will be pointed towards me. I don't have the 3 cameras set up yet, so I just make this work. I cut it together, each angle while the person's talking, make it work. This is what that kind of looks like in a conversation setting.
Yeah, just from me to you, as a person, as a creative, as a friend, you got the skills. You said earlier, you're a problem solver. You've always solved every problem that's come up. There's no reason to doubt yourself.
Now, as far as the podcast desk goes, I found this desk at my local Big Lots store. It was a sit-stand desk, so I use this as my personal working desk and the podcast desk. I can adjust the height depending on the height of the chairs that we're using at the time. But say someone was super big or super small, I can adjust the table to be able to fit that person the most comfortable way. Then currently, I haven't invested in the boom arms yet for the microphones like you typically see on most podcasts these days. So I went with the cheap option I found on Amazon, which is these Samson. I think they were only like 15 bucks or 12 or something like that. They were super cheap, under 20 bucks. They are weighted on the bottom, so they won't like randomly tip over or anything like that. So whenever I sit down here and I'm talking to the person across from me, sometimes it's really hard for me to remember what I was going to ask them, and sometimes I have specific topics that I would like to cover depending on what the person's expertise is and what they are familiar with talking about. So instead of getting most of the way through and realizing I have forgot about something I wanted to talk about, I have started making lists here with my MacBook. Definitely don't have to have a MacBook to do this. You could even use just an actual notebook or your phone. So obviously, being a video production guy, I really want everything to look good also for the littlest amount of effort possible for podcasts. What I did was I took a Godox VLC150 light, I put it on a C stand and boom it out over the table. So it's directly above the table facing just straight down. And then I have a Godox lantern on it. Using a lantern softbox instead of a directional softbox allows the light to go in all directions. So having this one light boom directly above and then with the lantern on it, it makes like nice soft light, but it lights up both of the subjects. I don't have to have one light pointing at me and another light pointing at the other subject. I can just have one light and it does both. And then I didn't want to just have a daylight thing in here, so I added these little kicker lights on each side just to give a little bit of color on the side of the cheek and the back shoulder. I added one back here behind me and one back there behind the guest. Now, one good thing about these microphones is that they reject a lot of the sound from the outside room, like the ambient sound of your room. But to help enhance that, I have all these foam panels, which double as my backdrop, kind of, in a checkerboard pattern back here behind the desk. I did that intentionally because I knew I was going to be filming this podcast here, and I needed some extra help with the sound dampening and also to make this old cracked wall not look quite as bad on camera. So I have all these sound panels. I have about 140 of them in this room, all over the place and all over the ceiling, if I can get them to stay up there because they keep falling off. Now, one more thing that goes into this is in my studio space here, we made this really big window here, which is great in almost every scenario, but whenever you're wanting to darken down the room and make sure the only light in the room is where I want it to be coming from, I take a really big collapsible backdrop and I just put it on the outside of the window with the black side facing in, so it rejects all of the light, keeps all of the ambient light from out in the main area from spilling in here, especially in the morning time. And the way our building is facing, the light comes directly in this window. So that is my whole entire setup currently for my podcast. I'm just getting this thing going, but I'm loving it so far. Talk about creativity and business and networking and all of the things that us creatives like to talk about. Get to do that in podcast form. If those are things you're interested in, make sure to check out the podcast, linked in the description. I got new episodes coming out every other Monday on YouTube and also on Spotify. My name is Brian. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more photo, video, podcasting, all of that content. I'll see you guys in the next video.